welcome back to my channel. My name is Miss M if you're new to my channel, and today we'll be talking about standard 5.OA.2. Alright, in this standard, I always start off my videos with identifying the verbs and what will be our key targets in each video. So in this particular video, we will be talking about expressions. So let's start out with this expression. Well, this standard. All right, so in this standard, we got simple expressions, and what we'll be doing is writing them. All right, and we'll record calculations with the numbers and interpret without evaluating them. All right, so they provide an example here. They have the calculation, add 8 and 7, then multiply by 2. So to simply write that, it'll be 8 plus 7 within parentheses, and then multiply it by 2. And then they also have recognized that 3 times 18,932 plus 921 is 3 times as large as 18,932 plus 921 without having to calculate the indicated sum or product. So in the next slides, what we'll be doing, we'll actually be finding keywords. So one thing I like to do when I used to teach this standard in school on the 6th grade level is I like to identify words to help us understand what we will be doing. All right, so in these first examples, we're actually going to start off with something simple and work our way up into something great. All right, so the first thing, like I said, I like to do is I like to identify keywords. So we have the difference of 10 and 3. All right, so the word difference. So the word difference was associated with subtraction when students were in elementary school or in first, second grade when they were introduced to subtraction. All right, so in order for us to represent the difference of 10 and 3, we're going to simply write it as they have it here. So it's going to be 10, difference means subtraction, 3. We won't evaluate because in this particular standard, it does not ask us to evaluate. All right. So now the product of 5 and 9. All right. So our keyword here is product. The product means to multiply. All right. So we're going to represent this phrase by saying 9 times 5. All right. So I'm going to do a brief pause to allow students to identify the keywords in the last two problems. And then once we identify those problems, then we will move on to the next. All right. So I'm going to give them two minutes. All right, so let's do these problems together to see what we came up with. All right, so in this one, the sum of 3 and 11, we had the word sum. From elementary school, we learned that sum was associated with addition. All right, so we're going to write the sum of 3 and 11. So it's going to be, well, if it writes. Okay, there you go. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right, so we got 3 plus 11. It's okay. We know that there's a 3. All right, and then we had the last problem. We had the quotient of 20 and 2. All right, so from grade elementary school, maybe first, second grade, they associated the word quotient with division. So in this situation, we're going to say 20 divided by 2. All right, so hopefully we all got the same answer. If we didn't, just pause and we could talk. You could talk about what may have went wrong. All right, so in just a second, we're about to move on to the next set. All right, so now in these particular problems, the problem's getting a little more complex. Not much more complex, but a little. All right, so in the first problems, we only had to do one operation. In these particular problems, we're identifying more than one. So we have add and multiply in the same sense, or multiply by. All right, so we already know that add means to addition and multiply means multiplication. All right. Sorry about that. Neatness is very key to me. All right, and that means to multiply. All right, so let's just start one step at a time. Let's just start with the beginning. Add 6 and 4. All right, so let's just represent that. So we're going to add 6 plus 4 because that's what it told us to do. All right, so now that I have 6 plus 4, so another rule that could potentially happen is that what they do when they separate the two operations within a numerical expression, what they tend to do is they tend to separate it by putting the numbers in parentheses, right? So the add 6 plus 4 is now complete. So now the next thing that we want to do is multiply time 2. So that'll be the last of our operations. Okay. All right. So now we have 13 more than 18 times 14. So when it says more than can go two ways. But how more than is being used in this particular situation is being added on. So we got 18 times 14 plus 13 because more than represented addition here. I'm trying to write addition. All right. So now let's look at the next one. So in this particular problem, we have the words divide and we have the word subtract in this particular problem. All right. So it wants us to divide by 2 and then subtract 1. All right. So let's start with just the first part. It's all about breaking it into two different operations, not to confuse yourself. All right. So first, I'm going to say 34 because it's telling me what to do. Divided by 2. And then subtract 1. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you a few seconds or a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes to look at these last two to attempt them. And then we'll do them together. All right. So let's go ahead and go over these particular problems. All right. So in this problem, we had the word subtract and we had the word multiply. Now, you have to be careful here because most people will just all subtract 6 from 12 and they will literally write 6 minus 12. And that's incorrect. So, what it's saying here is that it's you got to subtract 6 from 12. So, the right way to do that would be 12 minus 6. All right. So, once I got to the 12 minus 6, since it got the comma separated, I'm just going to put this in parentheses because it just makes life easier. All right, you got 12 minus 6, then we're going to multiply times 3. Okay? All right, so now let's do this last problem. All right, so in this last problem, trying to change the color. In this last problem, we have the word times greater than. All right, so it's 4 times greater than 595 plus 24. So we have 595 plus 24 times 4. So if you were to evaluate this, then it'll be whatever the answer to this, the sum of this is, times 4. But we're not evaluating in this particular standard. All right, so to continue, so now it gets a little more complex. We saw in the second slide that they actually separated everything. In this particular slide, they do not. So 1/2 the sum of 9 and 3. Okay, so we have 1/2 and we have sum. All right, so when you hear 1/2, 1/2 normally is represented by half of something. It could be 1/2 or just simply divide by 2. And we know that sum means to add. All right, so let's represent this. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is do 9 plus 3 because that's simpler to do with addition. And then I'm going to half it. So I could say divided by 2. Or another way that it is commonly written, it would be 9 plus 3. Give me 1 second. Pen kind of malfunction. All right, so it'd be 1/2, then time 9 plus 3. So anytime you see a number outside of a set of parentheses, it just means to multiply it by whatever's inside. So if we did 9 plus 3 and then half of that answer, then that would give us the answer to this particular problem. All right, so now the next one. All right, so now we have 2 times the difference of 5 and 3. All right, so again, we have 2 operations going on in this same sentence or statement or expression. All right, so we have the word times and we have the word difference. All right, so in this particular situation, I want to go ahead and attack where it has 2 different numbers, well, 2 numbers where I can actually get an expression. So let's attack the difference of 5 and 3. So we know that difference means to subtract and times means to multiply. All right, so we have 5 minus 3. And I'm going to put that in my parentheses. And then I'm going to multiply times 2. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you just a second just to look at these particular 2 problems, and then we'll talk about it together. All right, so let's see what everybody got. Let's see if we're on the same page. Okay, so let's look at this particular problem. So in this particular expression, we had the words quotient, we had the words minus. So that was 2 different expressions that we had going on. So I always like to approach the operation within the expression that has both numbers before I actually, attempt the part that doesn't. So let's start with the quotient of 15 and 3. So we know that quotient means to divide, and we need know that minus is represented with subtraction. All right, so we're going to get the quotient of 15 and 3. So let's do 15 divided by, come on, dots. 15 divided by 3. Put it in parentheses to make our life easier. Minus 4. Okay. And the last problem on this particular page. All right. So in this same scenario, we had times, and then it says add 10. So first we got to multiply 7 times 4 and then add 10. So we're going to do that. We're going to do 7 times 4. I'm going to put in parentheses to make life easier. Then I'm going to add plus 10. All right, so if you want to check your answers now to see if we got the same thing. If we didn't, then let's look at it and reevaluate what may have went wrong. All right, so in this last expression, what they want us to do is they want last two expressions. They want us to write these expressions in words. So I like to break it apart. So I'm gonna start with what's within the parentheses and work myself out. All right, so there are so many different words to represent addition. I'm just gonna pick one of the many words. So you got like add, you got plus, you got all kind of words. Some, like, you're not limited. Long as the word represents addition, then students are allowed to use it. All right. So what I'm gonna do is say the sum of 3 and 5, and just like with multiplication, you could say times, multiply, multiply by, the product of. It's so many things that you could use to represent multiplication that students can are not limited, long as the word represents multiplication. In this situation, I'm just gonna say times 7. All right. So in this last expression, I'm gonna make life easier. So we got three operations going on. We got division, multiplication, and addition. All right. So I'm gonna write this from left to right just to make my life easy and everybody else's life. All right. So let's talk about it. So the first operation we encounter is division. All right. So with division, like I said, there are so many different words to represent all the four main operations that we use. All right, so I'm just gonna start it off by saying one word, quotient. All right, so I'm gonna say the quotient. 1 second. Give me 1 minute. All right, so the quotient of 8 and 2. So then we have multiplication in the middle. I'm just gonna say times. And like I said, if you want to just say 5 plus 5, that's fine. We could have said times the sum of 5 and 5. We could have said 5 added to 5. It's so many different ways that we should have done this or could have done this. So like I said, I hope that this video was helpful for you all. And this is 5.0 or 5.OA2.